What's going on, everyone? It's Chris, and welcome back to once again another episode of Madden Maniac Previews. How is everyone doing today? Last episode, I should address last episode at least a little bit, because I'm sure you heard it. I turned off my air conditioning, to film these recordings, and usually I don't end up opening up the window because it's just hot out. Don't really want to have the room filled with humidity and all that. And I just begin to and this might be a little TMI, but all of I develop a cold during the recording, and so I'm having to pull out tissue after tissue. This happened in another recording earlier. I think it's because I have my window closed. I'm not getting fresh air. That all of a sudden I just start it's not even it's not allergies where I'm sneezing and a complete mess where I'm coughing and swelling up and whatever, but it's just my nose is just fucking. I don't want to get too detailed there, but it's rough. It was a rough ride, all right, and so we're here. This is maybe not how I want to introduce this episode, especially people who are just watching this particular episode and not anything else, and they're like, "What the fuck? This guy's just talking about his nose, what?" All right, anyways, let's get into it. We're talking about Raiders and Cardinals today. So as I'm recording this, it is midnight. Midnight. How do you guys refer to it? Midnight. It's Friday going into Saturday, so I guess you could say midnight Friday night, I guess. And as I am recording this, the Raiders game is still going on, but I wanted to wait till after the game was over, but I wanted to hold out as long as possible, because just in case there's any major developments, any news. It's still going on, but I think that all the major players that are at least an impact for the Raiders this year are now back on the bench, that you don't have to worry about them as much. The Cardinals, on the other hand, they will be playing, as of this recording, they'll be playing tonight. So that when this goes up, that the video will come out at 3 p.m. I believe they play at 8 p.m. That night. So I would be all caught up, hopefully. Unless there's some major breaking Cardinals news and I just end up missing it. We'll see. I'm editing this 24 hours from now, so by then maybe it'll be more clear of what's happening. Anyways, I should talk about our teams, the Raiders. So, the Raiders this year, obviously, the biggest storyline with the Raiders this year is Jon Gruden. And I have to say, the idea of him coming out of nowhere to coach again does not really rub me the right way. Not that look, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for trying. It's important to try those things. Get back into the mix, the coaching mix. That's fine. But there is a concern of how much has he learned from his time in the booth and all that. I just, how much has he maybe adapted to new age offensive play calling and all the new rules. And again, I know he's been learning this stuff and he's been looking at this game from a very different perspective. It's certainly a unique situation, and it's not like this guy hasn't had success in the past. But I am just skeptical to see at least how this first year goes. I think there's going to be some growing pains, some adjustments. But you know what? He's a good coach. I didn't love the idea that a year after Jack Del Rio brought this team to the playoffs, that he was kind of left behind and kind of fired. I felt like Jack Del Rio got done dirty. But of course, that doesn't really matter. I think that they really wanted. I think they've always wanted Jon Gruden to return to the Raiders, and this was just the perfect opportunity to do so after kind of a season that fell much very below expectations. So I guess that's just that's how the NFL works, right? You kind of you go from you seem like you're gonna be like coach of the year candidate one year, and then the next year you're on the street. It's kind of rough. I'm surprised he didn't even get a job though. Like not even in broadcasting, because they were talking about him getting a broadcasting job, and I have not heard anything. He is not at all anywhere, I don't think. And that's like a shame, because he's been seen as like a relatively like good coach, like not like a terrible coach. I don't know. The whole thing's just weird to me. But hey, you know what? Jon Gruden is your guy, and we'll see how it goes. It's fun seeing him on the sidelines. It's fun seeing him return. It's fun seeing him, I get to live a Jon Gruden coaching career, because I missed that when I was very young and not a fan of football. So let's talk about the players, obviously. So Derek Carr is your franchise guy. Obviously coming off a rough season, and we don't know. Right, I get it. I think right now that's why Jon Gruden was kind of hired. Was like he's kind of like a quarterback whisperer. He's done like the QB camps on ESPN. So I would like to see if those are actually effective, and if he can actually, if Derek Carr actually improves. Because if he improves and he has like a stellar year, like that'd be amazing. Like it was kind of stunning, like when it all came down to it, that after a rough season, he still got like a Pro Bowl nod, which we all know why they just run out of quarterbacks to have on that Pro Bowl, on those Pro Bowl teams, and they're like, all right, we'll find anyone. And I don't think that Derek Carr is a bad quarterback at all, but it was very obvious last year that he had a drop-off. So I think having someone that's a very offensive-minded, quarterback-centric head coach is going to be, I think it's going to be interesting. And they already have, like, the noodle thing in practice, They already have, like, all the weird practices that he had on TV show up in, like, early off-season practices. It's weird, but I love it in a way. Like I've said like many different things that kind of contradict each other. It's true. The truth is that I just do not know how to feel. Like this is a really, really interesting. This team is an enigma with Jon Gruden coaching it again. Like it's weird. You don't know what to expect, but like you want to see good things, but you're not too sure, and that's just where I'm at. And I'm hoping Derek Carr, though, I'm hoping he improves, because he seems like a good guy, and he's had some good, he had a really, really amazing 2016 season before going down with the injury. It seems like young quarterbacks going down with injuries is just like after having like, amazing seasons. It's like a trend. I'm really gonna be worried about the next quarterback we have, like really worried. So. We move on from Derek Carr. I've just talked about them the whole first quarter. Let's talk about the running back situation right now. Because right now, Marshawn Lynch is your starter. And it looks like, after a lot of rumors of, maybe Jon Gruden might get rid of him and all that, it looks like he's entering the season as the main guy. Which I think is good. I mean, I think that he hasn't been Marshawn Lynch, like Seahawks Marshawn Lynch, peak Seahawks. But he had like a few good runs where he just barreled through people and like made it like just stormed down the field like, yeah, what's up? I'm still here. I still exist after my retirement. How's it going? Isn't that interesting how like you kind of see the similarities between like Marshawn Lynch and Jon Gruden. Obviously, Jon Gruden has been away from this game a lot longer, but it's like the two guys that were stars at one point now on this team, kind of maybe the shell of their former selves, but kind of trying to emulate some things that they used to do while also adapting to the new game. Just throwing that out there. And like you do have Jalen Richard as a backup. Doug Martin's considered a backup, although I don't know, he might not even be a lock for the team, which is kind of a shame because he those few seasons with Tampa Bay, he looked so promising. He looked so good. And then it all went away. I think part of it was the nicknames. Part of it, maybe. But no, so I think that the running it situation is going to be fun to watch. Seeing how they use the running backs as weapons. Um, I think the main story though with the offense, outside of obviously the quarterback, is going to be the wide receivers, because you have Amari Cooper still there, and you do cut Michael Crabtree. You get rid of him, who was your best wide receiver last year, by the way. Whatever. If Jon Gruden doesn't like what he sees, he's gonna fucking get rid of him. We're gonna talk about that a little bit for more recent news that came out with the Raiders. But what they did do is they picked up a veteran, a proven veteran in Jordy Nelson. Now, I enjoyed watching Jordy Nelson in his years with the Packers. But I think when I started watching him, and he had, I think, one more good season after the torn ACL kept him out of 2015, I believe it was. 2016, he came back. He came back with a vengeance. He played pretty well. But then last year, and I think that part of it was cap room. I don't know, but and obviously Aaron Rodgers going down, he just kind of collapsed, and plus he, beyond just the torn ACL, he had other injury issues, and so they got rid of him. It's gonna be weird. It's weird seeing Jordy in something other than a Packers uniform, but all right, whatever. He's now the starter, and I do think that's kind of a downgrade on Michael Crabtree, considering the way that Crabtree played last year. It wasn't amazing, but it was pretty good enough where I would say, yeah, keep him around. But again, that's Jon Gruden, that he's gonna, he wants his players. I think it's gonna be fun to see how his chemistry with Derek Carr kind of builds the way that he had that kind of chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. If they can have that same, like, when you watched Rodgers and Nelson, it almost felt like they were reading each other's minds the entire time. That's what was so amazing about watching that combination. So I'm really interested to see if that kind of moves to the Raiders, because the Rodgers Nelson bromance, I don't think anything can ever top it. But maybe Carr can get in there and be like, Mr. Steal Your Girl. and like end up making Nelson back to his his true Pro Bowl form, and that they can end up having a very successful season with wide receivers. I think this is a better wide receiver situation right now. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think it's equal. Maybe the Packers do have a little bit of an edge. I think about Amari Cooper, because he might not. He had a really bad year. I forgot about it, but he had a awful season. And it was his. I think it was his third season in the league. At that point. But for the few years prior, he was performing very well. So, I don't know if it was just a rough patch or if it's going to continue. But clearly they trust this guy to still be the number one wide receiver. So I'm going to put faith in the fact that he has had more good seasons than bad thus far. And maybe last year was just an anomaly and you don't have to worry about that. Let's hope that he gets back to his true form, is speeding down the field, catching the ball. He's definitely like a deep ball threat, that's for sure. In fact, tonight when they were doing early on, it was AC/DC, 49 yards, touchdown. So he could return, and I hope he does. I am running out of time so quickly, so I'm going to try to speed through the rest of this. They drafted Colton Miller for the left tackle in the first round. It will be interesting to see how he goes. I've heard early that he's been struggling, and that's troublesome if you're considering him a starter, and he's a first round draft pick. There's probably gonna be some rookie struggles. Hopefully that does not deter him or the team. but especially that's a very, very, very important position to play. So, um, I don't know, man. I think about where's Donald Penn was the left tackle for a long time, right? Why don't they keep him as the starter, and keep Colton Miller on the bench? If he, because again, I think the rumors have been that he's been struggling. So why not have him come in and stay there? And because he did take the pay cut after all, keep him there. And he's not been bad for the Raiders. He's been pretty good. So why not keep him on that front, and then have Colton Miller just kind of, take a redshirt year or come in as a backup if need be, if Donald Penn's injured. I just a thought, because you don't really need to throw the first round pick out there right away. Kelechi Osemele, obviously a big name and has been a Pro Bowler. Rodney Hudson, again, someone who's been a Pro Bowler, someone who's been very good. Gabe Jackson in another year of starting with this team. I think that right tackle is a bit of concern. Bruno Giacomini comes over from Houston. He's been kind of a journeyman, so we don't really know. Like the tackle situations, there's some questions, but the middle is not too bad, and that's very important, I think, for the running back, because you got to move between the tackles. You got a pretty strong middle of that offensive line, not bad. All right, and of course tight end. I always forget about tight end, but Jared Goff. Jared Goff's the tight end, guys. Jaron Cook is he had a down year last year. What I will always remember is that 2016 season with the Packers, where he made play after play, was just a huge asset for Aaron Rodgers, and I think that's why I'm very high on Jimmy Graham, because I feel like that's just, he can use those tight ends very well up there in Green Bay. Down here with the Raiders, though, I think that the Cook is, if they can use him in as many passing situations as possible, especially when, like, in the middle of the offense, in the middle of the field, to throw to him, he will be so important. I do like him as a player. It'll be really important for this team and its success to get him as many targets as possible. He should have a good year if they use him properly. So I'm still a fan of his. All right, quickly with the defense, because we're under 2 minutes to go. Obviously, right now, what the fuck is happening with Khalil Mack? That's the other big story of the season. Because if you don't have him, you don't have a solid front seven at all. You're few good players on that front seven right now. I don't think Mario Edwards is too bad of a player on the defensive line. But certainly no Khalil Mack. Bruce Irvin, he's had up and down years with this Raiders team, but I think overall is better than most. Derek Johnson comes over from Kansas City, but he's had a few down years. Needs to kind of rebound himself. But that front seven kind of sucks. Arden Key I really like. I do like Arden Key. I think he could be an impact player. Maybe even Maurice Hurst. He was considered a high draft pick before they found out about the heart condition. The heart condition, at least according to Pro Football Doc and a bunch of other people, it's not really that big of a deal. So he could be a starter, and that could absolutely help in stuffing the run. So that could help improve the defensive line. But that front seven needs Khalil Mack. They need him to be there. And in my opinion, I don't know why you don't pay the fucking guy. You spent so much money trying to get Jon Gruden in there. You can spend a little bit more to get Khalil back there. To me, whenever players hold out, I usually side with the player, because if you look at other guys around the NFL that are being paid a certain amount to play at the position, you may look at what they do and see that they're being paid a lot more than you, and you look at what you do and you're like, I'm kicking ass over here. Why is this guy being paid more? And so it's frustrating. So I understand them holding out. I fully support any player that does it. So in a way, I hope he holds out into the season. But at the same time, I think he's more fun when he's out there playing. And it's important for this team to have him out there. So let's hope he gets out there at some point and can kick some ass. The secondary has been a concern for many seasons with this team. This is their chance to get it right. Gary Conley is finally starting at cornerback. They did get Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie just now off of in free agency. I really do like him from his time with the Giants, and he's been everywhere in the NFL, it feels like. But I truly think he's a good player, and I think he'll be a very important asset. Right now, he's not a starter, though. Right now, Rashaan Melvin is. I don't know too much about him. We'll see how that ultimately plays out. Reggie Nelson's now a bench player, who after having a few seasons, or at least, well, I feel like he led for a few seasons, but it might have been one season in Cincinnati that he led with interceptions, and then one season with the Raiders when he did. But he's now a bench player. He's being replaced by Marcus Gilchrist, who he was a big part of the Houston secondary last year. And Carl Joseph is your first-round draft pick from 2016. He's still starting at strong safety. I think he's a great player as well. I haven't seen like a lot out of him, but he is kind of the one guy where you're like, you know what, this is how this team's gonna have hope for the future in this group, if they're gonna have any. He gives that kind of vibe. Another sad storyline with the Raiders: they cut Sebastian Janikowski, their longtime kicker, this off season. Obviously, they went with the he had a season-ending injury last year, and then they cut him this year. So now he's in Seattle. That's fun. I feel like I feel like I should have talked about the Seahawks by now, but I guess not. I guess they're a little bit later in the playthrough. But the playthrough, it's not really playing. It's more like watching a computer simulation. It's a watch through. It's kind of, he's a legend, and it's kind of weird seeing him in a different uniform than black and silver, but you know what, that's just how it's amazing. It's just incredible, this career that he had. It's very hard to see kickers stay with one team for as many years as they do. It's pretty incredible. But now they're sticking with their starter right now is Eddie Pinheiro, with Mike Nugent as his competitor right now. Obviously, there's not going to be a kicker backup right like on the roster, so I'm thinking Mike Nugent's the one that gets cut, because I think they like the rookie, but you know, who knows how that goes. A few other names too on the wide receiver core that I kind of looked over. Now that I'm looking at it while we still have a little bit of time. Martavis Bryant was traded to Pittsburgh from Pittsburgh. He was the second wide receiver there for a long freaking time. So that's a big deal. That Steelers gave him up, but I think they kind of figured that he was problematic and didn't really have that great of a year last year. He struggled though. He's been struggling in that camp definitely, and so we'll see if he gets if he keeps his roster spot or not. I'm so close. Hold on. Also, they got Ryan Switzer from trading and Dwayne Harris from the Giants, and I think that's it. Ryan Switzer. It's a weird name. Okay. Between these two teams, who do I think is going to make the playoffs is going to be the Raiders, because I'm about to talk about the Cardinals. And I think the Raiders, just because right now Jon Gruden has a more proven track record, even though he has been gone for so long, and he's, you know, I think that there is a little bit more depth on this Raiders team than on the Cardinals. Here's my issue with the Cardinals, and this is a team I fell in love with in 2015 and 2014, because it seemed like they were on the brink, that they were right there. They were about to make it to the Super Bowl, that Larry Fitzgerald was finally going to get his ring. And slowly but surely, you've just seen over the last few years that window was closing. And in my view, it is shut, closed now about a Super Bowl this year, maybe even next year. Most likely for the rest of Larry Fitzgerald's career. And that's kind of sad. But doesn't mean there's not hope for the future. Let's talk about that. So, first you hire Steve Wilkes, who I love very much. I wanted him to be the coach of the Giants. Ended up going to the Cardinals. I think it was a great hire. Because I think that the way that he presented himself on the first day in his press conference, and I think the amount of praise that was coming out from all of these NFL circles for him, and these endorsements of him, and how hard he works, not only as a coach but as like a person. Like he's very connected with his players, which that's always a big deal for me as a fan. There's some fans out there that just want the coaches to be hard asses on their players and just get them in shape to win. I put myself in the player's shoes. I want my coach to be a good human being while also teaching me how to fucking play football and also trying to win games. I don't think that's too hard to ask, and it seems like Steve Wilkes is that guy. So I think that they made a good hire on his front. Interesting quarterback situation for them because they draft Josh Rosen high in the draft, and I think I would make the argument right now that they got the best quarterback in the draft. Is it proven right now? No. I think of all the quarterbacks that I was looking at last year and watching the college football season, no one gave me more excitement than Josh Rosen. Well, I guess Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson gave me more excitement, but I think there's some worry about like how his development's going right now. In terms of someone who could start within the next year or two, Josh Rosen. I very much love his style of play. Not so much of the escapability factor, that like Baker Mayfield has, but I think just a lot more. He's so accurate with the football, and I think he's careful with it, and I think that's why I love a lot about his playing style. And I think it's okay that he's going to be benched for a little bit. We'll see. And I think they got a good deal with having Sam Darnold. Jesus, I'm gonna do that a few times here. Sam Bradford, who is the former first overall draft pick rather, and a guy that has been kind of labeled a bust, but he's had some really good games in recent years. And I would say specifically the last one he started, the last one he started was with the Bears. Was against the Bears last year. We don't want to talk about that game. I do want to talk about the game against the Saints in Week 1 of last year because that was one of the greatest passing games in that season. And then obviously he got replaced by Case Keenum, and the rest is history. But if he could stay healthy, I think he's going to be a reliable option for this team. And then you look at the rest of the offense around him, and it's not that bad. I'm going to point out my concerns really quickly here. Where I'm not concerned is obviously at the running back position. David Johnson. Very excited to see him come back. Was very sad to see him go down with an injury that kept him out all year. He is needed to be the face of the franchise moving forward, especially with losing Carson Palmer, losing Bruce Arians, and of course Larry Fitzgerald might be heading out very soon. I don't know. Larry Fitzgerald might play another 5 or 10 years. The guy, I'm not gonna put anything past the guy. He's fucking amazing. But let's assume that maybe in the next few years, maybe as soon as this year, he ends up retiring. David Johnson's going to be the guy that steps in. Is going to be the face of the franchise, and it's so cool to see him go from like third round draft pick from like a kind of under the ground school. That also coincidentally had Kurt Warner from another famous Cardinals legend in that draft, or not in the draft, he went undrafted, but from that college, Northern Iowa. I think that he's going to be a huge part of why this team would win games this year. And if he doesn't play a part, then there's problems. The Cardinals will have problems. Let's talk about the wide receiver core. Because keep on talking about Fitzgerald. I don't think I need to keep on talking about him. You know him. You know what he does. From there, I am worried about the depth of the wide receiver core. Because then you have the one guy I'm looking at that I'm like super excited about, and I'm sure many people are excited about, they keep talking about, is Christian Kirk. And he was a lot of fun to watch at Texas A&M, and I think that he is going to be this offense in the future. He's going to be a potential, replacement for Fitzgerald in the future. They're different. They're kind of different wide receivers in a way, but I think that, as long as you have one really good guy that to start out with, then that's good. But from there, the depth, you're right now, he's not even starting. You have Bryce Butler, J.J. Nelson, Chad Williams, Greg Little, and I think it just goes too deep in there. Trent Sherfield, Carly, whatever. Not a good group. Outside of Larry Fitzgerald right now, and currently we don't really know for sure, but we kind of have high expectations for him and Christian Kirk. This wide receiver core, I'm very concerned about, because you need weapons to throw to. Right now, your starting tight end is Ricky Seals-Jones. And I think he actually just got arrested for something. All right, maybe it might be overlooked, or it might not be cause of suspension or anything. But again, my point is there's concern there. The offensive line, there's depth issues there. Although I will say this, DJ Humphries needs to have a big year. Andre Smith has kind of gone into journeyman mode. So you might not be able to rely on him. Mike Iupati, who's been a very successful player in the past, needs to step it up this year, needs to have a healthy year. Mason Cole has to step in because they lost A.Q. Sorley to injury. That sucks. That really sucked for them, and even then, the center position was never really locked in stone. But Mason Cole is a rookie, and is now going to be put in the big spot. One guy I do like on here is Justin Pugh. I loved him at the Giants, but again, he was part of an offensive line last year that was bad, so I don't know if his talents will save the group. So, right now, the receiving core and the offensive line is what I'm very, very concerned about with the Cardinals. Quarterback, there's a pretty bright future, and I think that they're handling the situation well. Again, I think that keeping Rosen, keeping Rosen on the bench is going to be, it might be beneficial for them going forward, because I think he needs time to develop. And if they really think that they want to win this year, although again, I go back to my argument with the Browns. I want them to start Baker Mayfield because he looks like he's playing better, and I think going with the better quarterback right now is the best situation. But right now, Sam Bradford is going to be. I think that he's playing a little bit better than Josh Rosen. And part of the thing with Rosen is when we've seen him on the field, he's taken first team reps, and he's played pretty fine. But when he's with the other second teams and all that, he's very hindered by the offensive line depth, and it's very hard to perform with a lack of talent with that around you, especially when you're not at the level where you can kind of you can your talent will overcome that. That you'll be able to not have to worry too much about that. So I think Bradford, being the veteran, will be okay, but he needs to stay healthy. And behind this line, a little worried, but again, we'll see how it goes. For the Cardinals defense, you know, you look at this group, and obviously the big names that point out to you is Patrick Claybon. Patrick Claybon, Jesus Christ, not Claybon. He's an NFL Network personality. Patrick Peterson, obviously. Patrick Peterson and Chandler Jones. The one of the best lockdown corners in the league, and one of the great pass rushers in the league right now. The two of them are set to have big old seasons again. Will probably be Pro Bowlers again. You can rely on them. They're going to help improve the defense. You have no question about that, and I don't either. Then from there, you have a lot of guys that are unproven, that need to make a statement this year. You have, on the defensive line, you have Robert Nkemdiche, who, after kind of having like a redshirt season in 2016, 2017 he comes in and he does not really perform to his expectations, and now you're entering 2018 and you need to. He needs to have a big year to kind of be like, he needs to have that defensive line like set, because I know Chandler Jones right now, he's a defensive end on the line, and that might help things a little bit, but he needs to make a statement this year as a run stuffer, as someone who can hunt down the quarterback. He needs to have a big season. Hassan Reddick, who I loved watching at Temple. He is now with the Cardinals, and in his first year, it just felt like he was very lost when he played. Didn't really understand what was happening at times, and it was very clear watching him on the film. I would hope that this year, under the new coaching staff, in another year, just on the NFL level, that he gets it and he understands it, and he can make a big impact knowing his talents. I do like Budda Baker a lot. He as a special teamer certainly, but I think he has to be able to lock down the strong safety role, and roll with it. Antoine Bethea is also there. I think he just came over from San Francisco, or he did last year. I'm forgetting. But I look at the rest of this defense, and right now there's just not a lot of big names that are standing out to me that are going to be that make you feel good. I mean, you have Deion Buchanan in the mix here too. You have you have a lot of guys that you traded for. Jamar Taylor earlier this offseason, a guy that was a starting cornerback for the Browns. He has to have an improved year as well. I mean, because the secondary was not that amazing for Cleveland. So there's just a lot of guys that are unproven, and they need to have a big year. Now with Steve Wilkes, a defensive guy, that's going to help matters for sure. And he's going to have a big impact on probably how as I've said many times in these preview videos, good coaches know how to use their talent, the talent that's given to them. And so right now, with the defense as it is now, it does not have a whole lot of depth at any position, really. I mean, even the cornerback and defensive end that has these star players on it, what's behind them? Not really anything that's like really concrete and in stone. You want to have Steve Wilkes look at this and be like, well, okay, we don't have a lot of depth right now, but let's see what we can do with these certain packages, we can put this guy here, put this guy there, and we can just make this work. and see how it goes. Especially if you make some position changes, you know, it could maybe it might end up working out for them. Obviously, it's a little too late now. Like they're kind of already into they're already on the brink of the regular season at this point. So you're probably not gonna see any major changes at the moment. That maybe some here and there, but not anything huge. So, but that's if I'm a Cardinals fan right now, that would be my biggest concern, is the depth overall in this team. But what Steve Wilkes is going to do with it, and I also think about the general manager and Steve Keim and what he went through this offseason, or what he put other people through, really, because of his drunk driving incident. And if this team's sole issue, is depth, and Steve Wilkes otherwise has a pretty good coaching year. I mean, it may not end up having a winning record, but he's like pretty solid enough where like, all right, he's gonna be good for the future. Steve Keim might be the guy on the outs come the end of the season, and the Cardinals might head in a different direction on general manager, which is difficult. But my hope is that Steve Wilkes has a say in that matter, and that they move forward. I honestly I'm not trying to like be like, oh well, you know, Steve Keim, he drunk drove, and you know he deserves to, you know, well, actually, you know, I guess I am kind of saying that. You don't drink and drive. Don't be an asshole. Don't drink and drive. It's a dick thing to do, and you're gonna hurt someone. Luckily, I don't think that ended up happening, but you know, I do look kind of poorly on him for that. But they suspended him for a little bit. But again, if this might be their way to get out of the contract with him, and to be like, look, the depth on the team is not good right now. We'll cut ties with you. And again, let's get Steve Wilkes in here, and let's get someone that maybe he likes that could help control personnel decisions. Or if Steve Wilkes is comfortable enough, and he could maybe take on personnel decisions like, you know, Bill Belichick does, or Jon Gruden apparently does now, even though Reggie McKenzie's there. You know, there's a few coaches out there that have sole personnel decisions, and so we'll see how that goes. But again, I don't mean to shit on the Cardinals. I don't like doing that, because I do like this team, and I want the best for this team in the future. But right now, as it stands, it's just not a good team that's going to be winning a lot of games this year. It has a good chance to be last in the division. Has, unfortunately, a good chance to be last in the conference. Could be a number 1 overall pick. That's the concern here. But the big but over it is that dark cloud has a silver lining, because there's hope in the future. You have a quarterback of the future that might have a big impact on what you do in the future. You know, probably is going to help get you guys to the playoffs again. Maybe get you guys to this, you know, get you guys to the Super Bowl. Who knows? And you have a running back of the future as well. The fact that you have a quarterback and a running back is huge. Those are two big parts of it. But you need to prepare for a future without Larry Fitzgerald. You need to improve the offensive line. You need to get a better tight end in there. You need to get defensive line around Chandler Jones that works, and hopefully before he goes away. And improve the linebacking core as much as possible. Get those guys developed. Reddick, Kimdiche, all the young guys. Get them developed as much as possible. You know, and get a great secondary around Patrick Peterson. You know, all of this is easy to say and really fucking hard to do. But this is all. Start somewhere. Start somewhere, and you can build towards that. It's just right now, this is a completely experimental year for the Cardinals. I hope the Cardinals fans realize that. And I think going into next year, depending on how the offseason goes, things could improve drastically. And again, we've said this about teams in the past. I do want to point this out too. I went into a season last year talking about a little team in Buffalo, saying that this is going to be a rebuild year. This is a team that's probably could end up being a first overall pick. You know, it doesn't have a lot of talent on the roster, not really high on it. And that team ended up being a wild card team. Of course, they got beat in the playoffs, and many people just kind of questioned the depth of the AFC generally. But still, it was a team that we did not think was going to be successful, and ended up being so. My point is, we have no fucking idea what we're talking about. my big disclaimer with this series is, and it goes again with everything that I do in the podcast. And I probably said this a million times, but I think it's relevant for this. We don't know what we're talking about. No one knows what we're talking about. If anyone says they know what they're talking about, and they know for a flying fact that this team's going to have 100% success and be like amazing this year, I mean, if you're saying that about the Patriots, then maybe you're going to be right. You're most likely going to be right. But like, the truth of the matter is, we don't know what the season holds, and we end up looking like idiots by the time the season's in we're in mid season, or by the time we get to postseason. And all the teams we thought were not going to make the playoffs, oh well, look, they're in the playoffs. The team that we didn't expect to win the Super Bowl, oh yeah, they won the Super Bowl. You know, that was the Eagles last year. a lot of people got kind of shocked about that. So, you know, all that being said, I think with this Cardinals team, if you really want to win this year, fucking pray. If you want to just, you know, let it ride out and hope that this is a young team, that the young talent on this team can grow and can develop, and the depth can be added in the off season, or even in the trade deadline, or in free agency during the season, or whatever. You know, see how that all builds up. Then that's how it goes, for them. So that's I think that pretty much sums it all up. As far as I'm trying to think of the connection between these two teams, but it's two teams with with new head coaches, and teams that are, I guess, just two teams that we don't know a lot about going into the season. I think people are a little bit more certain about what the Cardinals are than what the Raiders are going into the season. I think people are a little bit higher on the Raiders, though, than the Cardinals in that sense. And again, I do think that the depth with the Raiders is a little bit better. But although, you know what? I think about the defense. The defense is, there's an argument to be made that the Cardinals might have a better defense this year than the Raiders. That may be something to hang your hat on, Cardinals fans. Maybe. We'll see. But certainly, I think you have the franchise quarterback right now with the Raiders. You have, obviously the running back situation is better with the Cardinals right now. Wide receiver situation a little bit more deep with the Raiders. Offensive line's better with the Raiders right now. I think weapons generally Raiders. Yeah. So I guess that's an interesting thought. Raiders offense versus Cardinals defense. We will see that this year, by the way. This is a matchup that will be happening later this year. I think it's going to be on a Sunday. I think it will be at the stadium in Arizona. So, buckle up, folks. So that's something to look forward to. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say. I think about Bruce Arians, by the way. I do want to talk a little bit about him tonight, because he earlier tonight. I'm recording on Friday. Earlier tonight, he was doing CBS. He's now a broadcaster with CBS. He's working on the Greg Gumbel, whatever. And Trent Green. He's working with them in the booth this year. And so far, I think that he certainly has room to grow as a broadcaster, but what he's bringing to the booth is really he's bringing very interesting insight. A lot of technical terms that he's using, and that might confuse like a casual viewer, but it's kind of cool to listen to him talking about like um, what teams did last year and what in terms of schemes and what they're doing differently this year. Like he's talked about that a few times with the Lions. He talked about how the coaches run plays. Like he's very coach centric. He's not necessarily talking about players individually. He's just talking about how the team is run, and that's a very interesting perspective because a lot of analysts are players and they kind of just talk about it from a player point of view. And that doesn't mean that Bruce Arians wouldn't do that, but it kind of just, that's, I feel like that's what his approach is. I would like to see him have a little bit more personality in his voice. Right now he's kind of like, he's a little like tempered down a little bit, but I think he's always been that. He's always been like the smooth, cool guy. But would like to see him have a little bit more energy in the booth. But not forced. We don't want to see forced. And he was hesitant with some of the things that he was saying, but I think, again, you can't really beat him up for his first fucking broadcast. He's going to be calling the Steelers-Browns game. Something that I do love talking about a lot, and I talked about it with the podcast, a little bit of the podcast last year. I love talking about the people who call the games as someone who is just very interested in sports media. It's fun just to see like how that all changes, who's in charge of what games, how the process works of preparing for a game, and then how they actually end up doing the day of the game. And I when Bruce Arians was first kind of announced as being the CBS analyst, I was like, I don't know how well it works. I feel like he's better as like a studio analyst, but but again, I think he's in his first time. Some really interesting like insight that I just didn't expect. So I'm impressed. I'm very excited about that. So that's something else to look forward to this year, Cardinals fans. I'm spending this entire thing making Cardinals fans trying to make them feel better. The Raiders fans should be excited. I think that there's a lot to look forward to with the franchise. If Jon Gruden can out of the gate like just kick everyone's ass, then it will be incredible. It'll be a lot of fun to watch. Because he is a personality, a very, very interesting personality for sure. And, yeah, again, just gotta fucking sign Cleo Mack, man. Get him fucking on the roster. I want to see him. He's such a good player. Don't let him go away. Don't let him stay away. God damn it. Yeah, But the West generally is going to be just very intriguing this year. Neither division's too deep. You kind of see how they're going to be lined up right now, but could have some surprises in there. I think certainly the Raiders could be a sleeper team. And the Cardinals, if they kick ass and they make the playoffs somehow, oh boy. I'll eat my words and I'll be like, I'll salute, I'll bow, like, good for them. That would be amazing, especially with how deep that conference is. Oh boy. Alright, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Be good to one another, be kind to one another, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.